Hello and welcome back to CA 121. I'm Heather Hines, your course instructor. Today we are going to be going over Chapter 8, Vocabulary. My other video will go over the grader in particular. In terms of vocabulary, today we're going to be talking about data analysis. Now we've already talked about three types of data analysis, but today we're going to be talking in particular about Solver and Scenario Manager, and also how to complete a moving average, and a little bit more about if and nested functions. So let's get started. The last chapter we talked about the three what-if analysis tools. Right, so we have Solver, GoalSeek, and a two-variable data table. We did GoalSeek and two-variable data table in the last grader. Today we're going to learn more about Solver, which is related to Scenario Manager. When you use Solver, you can save them into what's called your Scenario Manager. All right, so how is Solver different? Well, Solver and GoalSeek, they kind of do the same thing. You can say, hey, I want to change, set maybe this cell right here to a value of, let's say 3123, by changing, let's say, the cost of goods related to sales, okay? Remember, what your set cell has to be related to whatever variable that you're changing. If I press OK, and if nothing changes, then obviously they're not related and something went wrong. All right, so I was able to say, hey, at 30,000, I need my cost related to sales at 84%. If I press OK, it'll save it. If I press cancel, it'll revert back. Very similar to what our Solver does. But instead, with Solver, I could say, hey, I want to save this to set that to 30,000. Or I could say, hey, I want to minimize this or maximize this by changing different variables. So I might say, hey, I want to change this variable. I could also change multiple variables at the same time. And I can even set constraints. I might say, hey, my growth rate, I could say, hey, I'm going to add a constraint saying that my growth rate, it doesn't make sense if it's more than 15%, because that would be silly. Okay, so I could say that. And then I could say solve. When I say solve, I could save the scenario. I could say, what would I? Profit of 30,000. Okay. And it has already solved it. Notice how it's now 30,000, just like in GoalSeek. And this is 84%, which is the same answer as GoalSeek. I could restore my original values, press OK, and it'll go revert back. But now that isn't lost because I saved it. I could go to my Scenario Manager. I have it right there. I can either add this, which would, I could either kind of merge this in, or I could do a summary. Most people like to say, hey, I want to do a summary. Sorry, let's try that again. I have to click the goal in mind. So Scenario Manager, I might say summary, I might press OK, and then it should give me my summary right here. Okay, so I'll save it. So that's the difference between GoalSeek and Solver. And when you're doing this sheet, you have to also understand fixed expense and variable expense. So what is a fixed expense? That's when your costs are not related to your sales. Notice how these fixed expenses are 40,000. So it's kind of like your rent. You know that your rent is going to be 20,000 a month, and you know maybe your loan is going to be another 20,000 a month. So 40,000 are your fixed costs. And then your variable costs, those change in response to the amount of activity. So let's just say you are baking a bunch of cookies. Well, then you have costs. You have to pay for, the sugar and the flour that goes into your cookies. So those are the costs related to your sales, aka your variable costs. The next thing we're going to be talking about is your moving average. What is a moving average? Well, let's just say I want to come up with an average, but I don't want to come up with just any average. I don't want to just know the average of all these numbers right here. I want to know the average of maybe the last 5 months, the last 6 months. So I might go here and make sure I'm on my data tab. This is part of your data analysis tool pack. You have moving average, you press OK. And then it'll ask you for two things. It'll ask you for your input range. It already says, hey, here are some numbers, so let's input those. Because it highlighted B2, I'm going to say, hey, my chart has labels, so make sure that's clicked. If I started at B3, I would not have that clicked. And then I would have to say interval. How many numbers do I want to average? Do I want to do the past 3, the past 5, the past 10, so on and so forth? So that's something you choose. And for output range, usually this number interval is past at least 3. Output range is where do you want it to go. I want it to go in C3, so I'm going to press OK. And notice how it says NA for the first few. Because I said, hey, I want you to average the last 5, well, these don't have 5 things to average, so it says NA. But this one, it does, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says I'm averaging these 5, so here's the answer. This one is going to be averaging the past 5. There's the answer. So the bigger the interval, the larger the number of NAs that you have. So for example, if I go back to data analysis and I change that from a 5 to a 10, press OK, then it's going to have blank the first 9, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because those don't have 10 previous sales numbers, but this one does. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I can average those numbers. Okay. The last thing we're going to be talking about is complex functions. We've done some complex functions, but here we're going to definitely delve into it. So this is asking, hey, for Alicia, how many shifts does she have during the day? So this is day shifts. So I want to look for Alicia and say, hey, how many times do I see her and her having a day shift? So here would be 1. And you'd look through here. So first you want to know, okay, how would you do this manually? When you're building complex functions, you want to know, how can you do this manually? So again, I'm looking for Alicia. And I think that's all. Here's another day. I might have missed 1 or 2, but basically that's what you would do. You would go through the servers, you look for Alicia, and then if you found Alicia, you look for day. So notice how I said, if you see Alicia, then you look at the shift and you look for day. So this is going to be, it wants to know the number of shifts. So how do I know number? Well, this would be 1, 2, 3. So what are you doing? You are counting. So this would be an equals count. Ifs, why ifs? Because I have multiple criteria. What is my criteria range for the first one? Well, it doesn't matter the order. So let's just say, hey, I want this range right here. Oh, it already named that range, which is nice. So now I don't have to worry about absolute references. And I want to know, okay, I want you to look for Alicia. Criteria range 2, I want you to look at the shift. And I want you to look for the word day. So I'm going to type that in with quotation marks around it. And I'm going to press enter, and it'll count how many day shifts Alicia had. So obviously, when I was going through it manually, I missed a couple. And why did I reference E3 instead of writing in Alicia? Well, because I already had the servers down here, and now I can just pull this down, and it'll automatically count. The next one would be Artie, Brian, and Carol. Hopefully this video was helpful in understanding the vocabulary. You can watch the grader video to understand how to complete this Chapter 8 grader step by step.